Hey y'all, happy Friday. So, I want to talk just a little bit today about the wise men and King Herod. You know, the, the story of Christmas, the story of the birth of Christ, has so many moving parts in it. And probably, we can relate to each of the different characters at some point in time in our life. Um, King Herod, we've talked about the wise men came as a delegation. Of course, they were seeking to pay homage, to honor, respect, bring gifts to this newborn king in hopes to entreat him and find favor with him in the future, as was customary in this time period. So, Herod, thinking that these wise men were coming to honor, worship him, bring him gifts, is very unsettled that there is one that has been called King of the Jews. Um, you know, so many different ways we can look here. But God is, sorry, that's Joseph running down the hallway. God establishes thrones and kingdoms. And when God has set Jesus as King of the Jews, there is really no power in hell that can stop what God had ordained and spoken of Jesus. And Herod, in reading this yesterday with you all, just to read the words was heartbreaking. That this man had the power, the ability, the right, because he was king, to go through and demand that every child, male child, 2 and under, be slaughtered. That is, it's just unimaginable that someone could come in and take your child 2 and under. My David is 2, of course he'll be 3 in January, but to that someone would be allowed to do that is beyond our thinking. But so it was in the time period. And so it said, this is Matthew 2:16, that Herod, when he realized he had been misled by the wise men, was furiously enraged and had sent and put to death all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that territory who were 2 years old and under, reckoning. So he traced that back, accounting. That reckoning there is an accounting term, taking it back until where he says he investigated diligently and had learned exactly from the wise men. But all of that was done out of fear. Jesus was not the type of king that Herod should have been afraid of. He was not an earthly king coming to, throw his rule and reign or to dethrone him. Jesus coming as the true king in the sense of his kingdom and his system of operation. And you heard the phrase before, kingdom living. I mean, Garden of Eden was how God intended mankind to live. And so Jesus was not the type of king that most men thought was coming. Even to the wise men, they were bringing gifts to a king to entreat favor, which of course funded his ministry. But, those types of gifts weren't necessary to entreat his favor. As Jesus, God, we read in Luke that, let me go back there, Matthew, Mark, Luke. In Luke 172, it's talking about Jesus, this one who's been raised up to make true, and show the mercy, compassion, and kindness. So, to make true and show the Hasid, promise to our forefathers, and to remember and carry out his holy covenant. Well, then the Amplified Classic breaks down that his holy covenant, which is to bless. And it's all the more sacred because it is God who made that covenant. That's why Jesus came, was to make true and to show Hasid to us, his people, and to carry out his covenant, to carry out the blessing which God made himself. But Herod, out of fear, acted, and such devastation. But in the midst of that devastation, what is key here that I just want to mention to you briefly is that provision was made, escape was made, salvation was made, safety was made for Jesus, the promised one. Herod couldn't stop it because Joseph was sensitive to the voice of the Lord. And my whole heart, my whole theme throughout the month of December and the Advent season has been provision, and at the appointed time, the right time. That star was created, remember, on the fourth day of creation, yet it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later that it actually came into sight, probably more like a couple of thousand years. But anyway, it was created, but then when the right time was here, when the time arrived, it was seen, recognized, and noticed to provide and lead the wise men to Jesus. Provision made all along the way. Zacharias and Elizabeth, who had made their petition before the Lord. Do you remember? That's what the angel told Zachariah, is that, don't be afraid. This is Luke 1:13. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, because your petition was heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, and you must call his name John." See, the prayer had been heard, the petition had been heard, but at the right time, she became pregnant. They received their gift. Provision. John was provision. John was fulfilling of prophecy to make the way prepared and ready for Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ, the Anointed One. And when Herod decided to take matters into his own hands and just kill and slaughter who knows how many babies, God spoke to Joseph, who was tuned in to the voice of the Lord, and told him where to go, what to do, how to be safe. And then he also told him when he could go back home and where. Provision is already made available. The Lord in his sovereignty, knowing what will happen, that doesn't change his goodness. That doesn't change his love for us. But his sovereignty and his knowing does provide us a way out. It doesn't leave us hanging. It should, as it says in Psalm 8, that he will guide us with his mind's eye. He will guide us with what he knows is coming. And so wherever you are in the scheme of what you need, what you are going to need and you don't even know you're going to need it yet, what you can know is that he has already gone before you and placed provision where it needs to be, so that it will be accessible to you, so that it will be ready for you at the time that you need it. He is just that good. And it is evident, particularly through the telling of the Christmas story, how at every turn God had provision available. And you and I are no less important than those things. His love for us is what caused him to send Jesus. So provision is there. I want you to be hopeful of the coming days and hopeful for the next year, that he's not left you hanging. He's not left you abandoned. He's not left you to fend for yourself. He's not forgotten where you are. He knows right where you are. And I promise you, he has made provision for where you need to be. So may we be like the shepherds. May we be like Elizabeth and Mary and the wise men and Joseph, who are sensitive to the voice of the Lord, because he is talking to us in a voice we will hear if we will pause and listen. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.